I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Gordon Lawson, CEO at Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more about our sponsor, Conceal, visit Conceal.io. Also joining us is Chris Miller, who was unanimously confirmed by the Senate in 2020 to serve as the director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center. He then served as the acting Secretary of Defense for the final 2.5 months of the Trump administration. Most significantly, he served in Army Special Forces from 1993 to 2014. Chris, Gordon, welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Steve, only the most cutting edge cybercrime magazine studio in the world. So thrilled to be here. Thanks for doing this with us.
You heard it here, and thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated. So, Gordon, let's just start off quickly. A new name, Conceal, a great name, really conveys what you do. It's easy to remember. It's easy to tell other people. Just tell us a little bit about that new name before we get started.
No, happy to. Well, obviously, many folks knew us as Net Abstraction, and we're super excited to launch this new journey as Conceal.io. We wanted to, I think, simplify our name was one piece, make it a little bit easier to spell and to brand and be visible. But most importantly, Steve, we've launched a whole new platform with Conceal. We're able to take all that great legacy experience we have with the Fortune 100 and the intelligence community and the roots of the company and build it into a cybersecurity platform that can really serve a much wider swath of customers in a really, I think, transformative way.
So, Chris, many people know you, but for people who don't, you have a highly esteemed background, and we have so many listeners who I'm sure will want to know more about your military service and civilian career prior to your position as the U.S. Acting Secretary of Defense. So please do share that with us.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, kid from Iowa, I was out there and I was like, I got to get out of Iowa. I mean, I love Iowa. It's a great place to be in the summer. But I knew that the world awaited, so I joined the Army Reserve when I was 17 years old. One thing led to another. I ended up in Army Special Forces, which was the Green Berets, they're called, and then retired in 2014 out of the military. My wife loved it in Washington, D.C. She'd moved around her entire life with our kids and said, I'm not moving anymore. So if you're in D.C., what do? You go into government. Went into government, and I got this crazy idea, Steve, about Al-Qaeda. I was really upset. I participated in the first operations in Afghanistan in 2001, and I was still a little bit upset, and I felt that we probably needed to go ahead and take some more action against them and try to defeat them and make them no longer capable of imposing their will on us. So I got this crazy idea. My buddy was at the National Security Council, and he was leaving, and I was a government employee. And what happens a lot of times, you get loaned from the Pentagon to the National Security Council, and he goes, "Hey man, you want to come interview for my job?" And I'm like, what I always tell my kids is always interview for a job. You get to learn something, and who knows, you might get the job. And this one was the White House. Lo and behold, I get the job. One thing leads to another, and I just got really, really kind of OCD a little bit on Al-Qaeda and going after them. And lo and behold, I just kept going with this and ended up as a political appointee, which is different. I was a career civil servant, military person, and then like a government employee, and I transitioned over. So, did that. And the final 73 days of the Trump administration, there were only a handful of us that were eligible to replace Mark Esper, who was asked to leave at that time. And I was the one that was selected, and I continued finish my service in government as the acting Secretary of Defense. Get out. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm getting pitched by a lot of companies, to come be on their boards and learn stuff. And I run into this crazy, just amazing person, Gordon, who has this vision of this company and this technology. And I just heard all about this technology, and I'm not a technologist. But when I learned what he was doing, I just said, "Oh my gosh, how can I be a part of this journey?" And so here we are.
Wow, from the Iowa cornfields to cyberspace. What a great story. So, Gordon, I have to ask, how did you actually meet Chris, and exactly what is he doing for the company right now?
Well, first of all, very kind words, sir. Thank you for that. But we met through some mutual connections in DC, and just we have an office here in Northern Virginia. We also have an office in Augusta, Georgia. Two great military cyber centers of excellence. And what Chris has done is, I think, really strategically helped us to expand our aperture. And I'll share a couple things. Um, uh, Chris is very, very in tune with our allies around the world. I think, as everyone knows, we have some very significant geopolitical threats that are crossing not just the kinetic warfare space, but the cyber warfare space as well. I think it's one of the most trying times that we're facing as a country with peer competitors like Russia and China. And Chris has been able to help us to engage and bring our cyber technology, I think, to some really fundamental allies around the world, and we're working closely with them. But also, he has amazing connections within the defense industrial base, and that's a core area that must be protected in the cyber realm. So it's just been a great confidant, a great strategic partner, and has become a great friend over the last year.
So, Chris, I am curious to know, over the past decade or so, perhaps even going further back, how much attention did you pay to cybercrime? How much of a concern was that, even if you aren't directly, in a role?
Oh, remarkably important. I mean, I'm clearly the old guy on the podcast here. I mean, I was in a special mission unit. In special operations, there are different kind of categories. Can't tell you which one it was because they come arrest my you know what. And it was on the cutting edge of technology. And this is going to sound really lame. This would have been like, oh, geez, 97 ish. First generation, like there's this thing called email, and we're going to communicate differently. And that was cutting edge at the time. And then to go forward with, as things develop, I think about in Afghanistan in 2001, we had a Sony Toughbook connected to Viasat, and that's how we transmitted information. And it was kind of like the first Merc chat in some ways. It was more a chat application, and then you would end up sending photos. Like a photo would take 45 minutes to send, and it would be like the pixels would come across the screen. So we all recognized very early on the potential of technology, but also the danger, and been extremely concerned. And that's frankly kind of, why I went with Conceal, is their application. I know that this isn't some like sales pitch. I know that. But when I learned about network obfuscation and the other tools that they're trying to bring online, that's kind of what we need to help with our operational security. I shouldn't say we anymore. I'm not in the military, but 27 years, 30 something years. What we need for our national security folks is they need to have the ability to access the internet, access communication portals, and be able to do their jobs without showing where they are. And so that's why, when Conceal came on board, I'm like, yeah, was looking for you guys. Would have been good to know you like 6 years ago.
Wow. So, Chris, listening to you, I'm tempted to go way back. You're talking about some of the early email systems, and we've been combating cybercrime for so long, but we only have so much time. So I'm going to take the two of you back to 2015. So we're just going to go back, 6 or 7 years. Gordon, you and I have touched on this previously. Ransomware at that point surfaced as headline news. It was about that time where I think all of society was paying attention to it. CEOs, boardroom executives. It wasn't just the IT community and the security community anymore. And at that point, we were looking at global damages of about $350 million. Last year, it was $20 billion, just to frame the growth over the past 6-7 years. And we're expecting a ransomware attack to hit a consumer or a business in our country and companies globally every 2 seconds over the next 5 years. So this is a very, very serious threat. Let's zero in. Gordon, talk to us about just how serious this threat is.
Well, Steve, we love your statistics. We don't love it because it hurts our customers, but it's important for us to understand and helps us shape the frame of the problem that we're dealing with. We talk to potential clients and current clients all the time about this, and the bottom line is the numbers are going up because security controls are not 100% effective. And so one of the things that we're looking at with the Conceal platform is we know the vectors where ransomware and malware are getting into these systems. It's email borne, it's web-based HTTP vectors, it's weaponized attachments, weaponized PDFs, for example. And the other piece I think that adds to the complexity here is nation states have developed certain tools that are now freely available by criminal gangs. So that line has now blurred between nation state capability and criminal activity and capability. And so, how do you defend against this? And what we have put forth with our Conceal platform is basically we're going to analyze every URL, not just an email, not just in your browser, every URL across every application on an operating system. We're going to see if it's malicious or unknown or suspicious. If it's any of those three, it's going to cloud-based isolation immediately. And we view that as an essential part of the security stack to protect end users, because we all know, based on the stats that you said, the bad stuff's getting through. We need an extra line of defense here so that when someone does click on something, and we know that they will, it is not going to infect the machine or the network. And that fundamentally for us was an important transition for the company. We know we have protected government agencies. We've protected the biggest organizations in the world. It was time for us to bring that down to some other corporations that maybe didn't have the massive cybersecurity budgets. But we truly believe that this platform is going to be transformative to defend against that threat that you addressed there.
So, Chris, I think a big concern we have, a lot of us have, is we're not just talking about the monetary harm, but a lot of these ransomware attacks are being perpetuated by hostile nation states. We've been able to track these back to Russia, to Iran, North Korea. I'm sure you could go down the list for us. I'm not sure that C-suite executives, boardroom executives understand, this is cyber warfare. It's not just cyber crime. It's very, very serious.
And, of course, I have to fall back on my military background. And there's always this struggle between offense and defense, right? And I think we all agree the offensive components had dominated us for a while. And we kind of got caught unprepared. We commercially and militarily, I would argue. And now I think we're finally, and that's the brilliance of America, just to be perfectly honest with you. We got this great talent pool and this unbelievable ability to innovate in entrepreneurship, and people have realized that, oh my gosh, we have to develop techniques and capabilities. One of my favorite books is called The Mandibles by Lionel Shriver, which nobody reads, but that's all right anymore. But it basically talks about the breakdown of society based on the inability to communicate via the internet. And it kind of everybody goes back to the days of writing checks, going down. Remember the days when you go to the electric company and you'd drop your check into the box and all? And that's kind of the theme of the book. And it's kind of like a telling kind of cautionary tale. But it seems, in my opinion, in what I'm seeing right now in technology, and I get a lot of information, and I see a lot of companies. I think we're figuring out now your question. What really intrigues me and your audience is, do companies truly understand how important it is that they protect their systems and do not make themselves susceptible to cyber attack? That's your world, not mine. But I think we're at this kind of transition point. I really think we're a bit at a transition point where we're starting to see the defense pick up. You always got to have offensive capability. Let's be clear about that. But I think the dynamics changing a little bit.
Well, I think part of what we, and when I say we, I'm talking about big business and I'm talking about Main Street, I'm talking about all businesses. Those businesses, especially here in our country, need to learn from law enforcement, need to partner with law enforcement. And so I, ask you, Gordon, is the private sector and public sector working closely enough? I mean, you're here, you're with Chris. Honestly, we don't see a lot of this. We don't have a lot of cybersecurity companies bringing people like Chris on, or people in any capacity with a military or government background. On the other hand, I mean, certainly we're seeing CISA, we've been aligned with the FBI for many years, but are we where we need to be or heading in the right direction?
Well, I think it's no. I think it's a great question. I think it's always improving. I think CIS has done a fairly good job here with outreach, with their alerts that they get out to private industry. It's always a tough legal question, Steve, for a private company to work with the federal government, and so there's a balancing act there. But I do think that information sharing is getting better. Just kind of going back to your question about cyber companies working with national security stalwarts like Chris. I think it's important for cybersecurity companies and all companies to kind of think geopolitically about these threats, to truly understand what's driving these threats, not just on a technical level, but on a deeper geopolitical level, because that allows us in industry to create defensive systems and to create solutions that are holistic and can really help defend industries like critical infrastructure. So I do think it's getting better, but I think we have a lot more work to do.
So, Chris, do you pay much attention to CISA, to FBI Cyber, internationally, to Interpol? And are you seeing more adoption, more direct relationships between businesses and these organizations?
I was going to tell a great anecdote. When I was 10 years old and I went to the J. Edgar Hoover building at the FBI and saw him shoot a Thompson submachine gun. I've always been a huge fan of the FBI, the working level FBI. I really have enormous respect and confidence in the shoe leather agent that's out there. And I think they're doing great work. But I got to tell you, I don't think government's the solution to this, pure and simple. We used to always have this thing where it upsets me to no end when I hear about the public-private partnership. We got to reverse that. It's got to be private-public partnership. What I want to see is industry. I'll give you an example. When we were fighting ISIS, there was a great thing called the Global Internet Forum for Counterterrorism. I might have that wrong. Industry came together and said, we've got to figure out our hashes. We got to figure out how to stop this stuff from emanating and accelerating. And you know what? When you got the major tech companies in the room, here's the problem. We didn't have enough small. And what they're trying to do now actually is try to expand out into mid-sized companies. But we have a template for how we can do things for cybersecurity. But the government wasn't the leader of that. That was a commercial approach by entities that knew that their business model to survive needed to take this seriously. So that's what I want to see things go. I would love to see, and CIS is doing a good job. And, I like what they're doing, but they're more an information source because like Gordon said, as soon as you start getting in the legalities of all this and the inherent danger of being too affiliated, I think that's probably a difficulty for a lot of commercial entities. If I was a CEO, obviously I'm not, it's easy for me to sit here and talk. Gordon is, I'd really take that. I'd be very careful about how I did that. But so for what it's worth,
well, I think you make an excellent point, Chris, and we do need to be realistic. In fact, the microcosm of what you're talking about, just a couple of days ago, a family member pinged me with a text and said that a coworker had lost $8,900, victim of a cybercrime. What do I think she should do? And by default, because I am a proponent of law enforcement, and I'm always thinking about turning to them, I directed them to call the local FBI office here on Long Island, and then I encouraged them to go out to IC3 and to also contact the Suffolk County Computer Crimes Division. But then I sent another text and I said, here's what I think you should probably do right away. contact one of these few companies that I'm familiar with locally because I know they can just help a lot quicker. Yeah.
Exactly. That you nailed it. The agility and the flexibility. I mean, I spent my doggone life in government, and I love the people that work in government, but that's really ultimately, what we need to get to. The agility and flexibility of private industry is without repute. And, that's one of the biggest problems I think we're having right now is we've got these antiquated policies and rules that are put in place with the best of intentions by the government. But we're like, I'll give you one example. What we're trying to do with Conceal is provide an operational security and a force protection element for people that are on the internet, military or national security professionals. And here's the thing, like, oh my gosh, that we have a policy that talks about, how we integrate with the internet, and that would be seen as some sort of nefarious activity. It's not at all. It's just common business practice, right? If you're at Wall Street and you're coming in from your location without some sort of application that's protecting you, I mean, nobody does that, but the government still does. I shouldn't say that because they're, want to be more, but that's how it works right now.
So, Gordon, we're beating around the bush a little bit here, and I appreciate that because, you're one of our favorite CEOs. So whenever you come on, you've got real thought leadership and experience. You bring great guests on. But we do want to hear directly about Conceal. So we won't call this a product pitch because we've looked into the company and we're very impressed with what you're doing. Just give us the 30,000 foot view. We have a lot of CISOs who are watching us. Exactly what are you offering?
Yeah, well, I think as I mentioned, Steve, it's a platform. So, and it's a platform that has applicability for the across the spectrum of an organization. So, for the users, we have a product called Conceal Browse, where it will scan all of those URLs across an operating system. It pushes anything that's known malicious or unknown or suspicious to isolation. So, you're fundamentally protecting the users at an endpoint level within an organization, whether that's 5 employees or 50,000 or 500,000 employees. Scales very, very easily and extremely cost effective to deploy. We also have some of our legacy capabilities, and those are getting even more robust. Chris alluded to some of the managed attribution that we can do, where we can make an analyst look like they're coming in from a different geography. And that's really an important skill set to have, not just for government, but also for anyone that working in a security operations center, and do that in a totally isolated, contained environment. So they can look at those nefarious things and do that analysis. That's our Conceal Search, part of the platform. And then the final piece is Conceal Cloud, where we can basically take an organization's critical assets in the cloud, really kind of take those off grid, if you will, and provide a lot of obfuscation around that. So all that great tradecraft that has been our legacy as a company from the defense and intelligence community, still maintained, still getting more robust, but now we're also able to give some amazing capability to the other parts of the market out there that are really, I think, bearing the brunt of these malware and ransomware attacks. And we're just super excited to be able to really add that value for them.
So, Chris, I can guarantee you're going to be, pinged by people. If they could figure out a way to get in touch with you, they'll probably, look out on LinkedIn or, do a Google search. They'll definitely contact us. They're going to want to know, how do they get you involved with a cybersecurity company? And if it's not you, how readily accessible are people with your type of warfare experience? And, how important is it? Can they reasonably expect to have those types of outside advisors?
Yeah, I'm a complete dinosaur, so I don't think you should. I don't think anybody should contact me because, I'm serious. Like, I'm 56 and I don't even trust myself. And because we're talking about a completely new arena, a new element for me of national security, not just commercially, this is going to decide how we move forward with our cybersecurity capabilities and how we protect ourselves and our offensive capabilities, it's going to decide the next war. And heaven forbid, I'm the guy who doesn't want to do any more war. Got enough of that. What's amazing to me though is I'm just a government slug. I never had to do a bottom line. I never had to make payroll, and to have the opportunity to watch Gordon. And we had an experience recently. An employee had a family emergency. So I got to kind of watch Gordon respond, because leadership matters. And, maybe that sounds cliche, like leadership matters, but for me, it really matters. And to see how Gordon took care of that situation, with integrity and honesty and with profound empathy. But here's the crazy thing about what's going on out there at Conceal. They got a vision and they've got a great team. So that's kind of where I learn more from, sitting here listening to you all than anyone's ever going to get from my blah, blah, blah. So it's just, I mean, it sounds cliche, man, but Steve, thanks for taking this seriously, because I think 9-inning game, where do you think we are? I think we're in about the top of the third. I mean, we're just getting started at this. I don't know where you guys are in this because you're the experts, but I think we've got a lot. We're just getting started on this, and we really, really need the best and the brightest working on this issue, because it's really about the future of our country.
Right. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Chris. I concur with you. It's still the Wild West, and there's still a lot of people out there who are undeputized and doing a great job. And this is going to play out. It's going to take some time, and it's companies like Conceal and leaders like Gordon who are making a difference. So I really appreciate the two of you coming on with us today, and I hope we can do this again.
Anytime. Thanks for having us. This is really, really special event for me. So thanks. Gordon, I know you do this all the time. You're like, I do this 3 times a week.
Chris, well, thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. And Steve, thank you. And I just one more plug. And Steve, I know I've done it in the past, but it's not about me. It's about the people. And, for us, and this is another thing that Chris and I are very passionate about, is we have a lot of young soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen who are getting some cyber experience, but now are transitioning in their life. We want those people in our company. We want people who are maybe in college and not sure what they want to do for the next chapter, but even without military experience, but have interest in this community. We're recruiting them in Georgia, recruiting them in Virginia, and so please reach out. But this is an amazing space. It moves at the speed of light, and we need to continue to have great people at Conceal as we move forward and do great things.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. This interview was sponsored by Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more, visit conceal.io. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.